guess I was expecting, I was hoping that the official opposition of Canada could do more. But, you know, my frustration, I have an extreme frustration with this unholy alliance between the NDP and the Liberal government for the simple fact that two reasons. One, I fully acknowledge I misspoke during my time at the convoy, and I phrased a certain desire to have a meeting with political parties with us during the convoy. And I didn't choose my words carefully enough, and they were interpreted by the media to be, you know, that Tom wanted to, was not elected. The convoy wasn't elected, but we demanded to sit down and form a coalition government with all the other parties, which was not true. That was not the intent. And I did walk it back the next day as soon as I understood the interpretation. But what I was saying is, you guys, all of you other parties could come together and form a coalition. You're allowed to form a coalition, apparently, and, you know, unify against what the government of Canada is doing to the citizens. And I was vilified for that in the media badly. And the whole time that was happening, and we were being vilified, I was personally being attacked on that. We didn't know that the NDP and the Liberal government had been working on a backroom deal already. They just hadn't made it public. They didn't make their coalition public until long after the convoy had been broken up. But here's the thing that upsets me. And maybe I'm somewhat naive, and well, definitely naive about this, but I am hypocritical to the sense that in one sense, I'm calling for a coalition. In the other, I'm saying nobody elected a Liberal majority government. And Jagmeet Singh walked over and handed him basically the ability to govern like a majority. Canadian citizens did not elect a majority government, but that's exactly what Justin Trudeau has. And if you don't believe me, just go look at all the voting records. You know, the NDP get in line with everything that the Liberals want them to get in line with. And that's why a lot of the votes have come down in the past. The NDP just basically prop them up.
You know,
and it
Tom,
frustrates Canadians as well as me.
The thing I don't understand is, like, the NDP and the Liberals, I mean, they have to live in this world they created. Like,
yes,
their families were locked down. They had to live through all this coercion and division and economic destruction. Like, we have generations of kids that they're gonna be behind economically and mentally and academically for their entire lives, like literally their whole lives. Like, yes. We're not gonna be kind of back to reset for 80 years, assuming that we don't screw things up more along the way. And, you know, here we have, you know, you mentioned it at the Liberal convention, the suggestion that vaccines should be made mandatory. And you know what I find so fascinating about that is okay, I can understand that if you were accepting the government narrative that, you know, we had this deadly disease and, you know, it was so bad we had to lose all our civil liberties, and, you know, the way out was this vaccine, like the way out was this vaccine, just, you know, ignoring the logic that if it actually worked, then why would you care if anyone else got vaccinated, right? Like, yeah. I mean, I get that, okay, people could go, yeah, no, I agreed with this one. But what about the next time the government wants to force, you agreed on this one, this was I'm with this, you know, but the problem is if it wasn't being coerced on us, you could have agreed anyway, you were free to agree. But what about, you know, when they want to impose it on you or your family and you disagree, like this one you're worried about? Like, do people not understand the precedent? What I mean, like, is the army going to be able to go door to door and like wrestle you down and stick a needle in your ass? Like, is that the world you want to live in? Because that's what you just agreed to.
And I often make this same exact point to people when I'm in discussions with them. It's like, you're under the impression that I'm upset about what's going on because of COVID or because of an injection. that I don't want to take. That is what you believe to be what my grievance is. That's not what my grievance is. My grievance is about the level of grotesque government overreach that this does set the precedent for now, but also next week, next month, next year, next decade. In, everybody that opposes what we did at the convoy, I always say at some point in your life, there is going to be an issue so important to you that you are going to be motivated to protest the actions and the overreach of the government. And guess what? You won't be able to, because you stood in the way of the group of people that went to Ottawa to put an end to the government's hubris and, their illogical thinking that they have this supreme right to rule over Canadians as opposed to work for them. And when you get that, when you understand, I don't talk to people about the experimental injection. I always try to frame it about the law, about the precedent that is being set, about what is going to happen in the future. This is about the law. This isn't about a chemical. And so I try to take that perspective with people. And what I've been finding is that I get a lot of results from people that say, okay, that's an interesting perspective. I didn't necessarily look at it from that point of view. I was looking at it from the greater good, protecting grandma in society and stuff. It's like, yes, but do you now realize that we have laws that have been put into place to protect us from the government doing what the government just did? And yet those laws were all just picketed and bypassed. So I find I get a lot of results in my conversations with people. They're more open-minded when it comes to talking to them about the law than it does about the actual participating in the inspiration.
That's a way to open the conversation.
Yeah, that's how I approach it. I don't approach it from, hey, chemical, bad, listen to Tom, good. Like, that's not the way I do it with people. I try to appeal to the logic, right? And I always talk about informed consent, and I explain informed consent is a two-part formula. You have to be informed. That's the part that you haven't been given, but it is your duty to give the consent. You shouldn't be giving the consent until you actually have the information to consent to, and that you can see the wheels start to kind of turn, right? Like, that's the approach that I try to take, and that's what I find has been the most successful for me. But it's interesting because I often get asked, how do you wake people up? How do I get through to my friends and my family, my coworkers? And at this point, I'm saying, I don't know that there's a huge point to it right now. What I think is, don't try to wake people up. Let them naturally wake up on their own, but be prepared to receive them. Be their neighbor. And they may never apologize. They may acknowledge. They may never see that they treated you unfairly, or they never, will see the error of the decisions that they made. But if they do, don't turn them away. Accept them with open arms and kind of help them through the process, because I think the rude awakening is upon us soon, and it's going to hurt for a lot of people. So be there for them.